Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with one or more creators, authors, illustrators, publishers, or other movers and shakers in games, TV, books, movies, or other areas of the Geekverse. Regular guests include Douglas A. Burton, the author of Faraway Bird, a multi-award-winning historical fiction novel of the Byzantine Empress Theodora. He's also the author of The Heroine's Labyrinth, an alternative story structure to the hero's journey that often occurs in stories with feminine heroes. That structural framework frequently comes up in our analysis of story. Brianna De Silva, she's the director and co-writer of The Cultists, a Lovecraftian comedy mockumentary-style web show here on YouTube. And the author of The City of Reckoning, an epic fantasy novel of political intrigue, the ethics of war, and young love. Cameron Pasha is a screenwriter, director, novelist, and was a writer and producer on the series Kings, a producer on NBC's Bionic Woman, and a co-producer and writer for Sleeper Cell. He's also written for the CW series Nikita and Roswell, New Mexico. He's been breaking news from inside Lucasfilm, Disney, and Hollywood. His analysis and commentary have become very popular on YouTube. We regularly meet to discuss and analyze stories, and when we do, we dive into graduate-level seminars on story structure and writing. Come on in and let's go deep. And when I say we're going deep, I mean you'd better bring your hard suit. Other guests have included Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels, Once Upon a Unicorn, the creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price, the book that explains why the Millennium Falcon is on the planet Batu at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Mark Tassin, the creator of the world of Ataltis, head of Mechanical Muse, former director of the Gen Con Writers Symposium, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. Let's see, who else?
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. But I have interviewed Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games, crowdfunder extraordinaire, and publisher of many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. Brian Colin, sculptor of the world of Revelo, Monster Busts, and the creator of the vast grim dark horror RPG. Ajit George, the Dungeons & Dragons author. We talked about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and the development of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel.
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne and the goddess of death.
Well, actually, that interview got rather spicy, so I think I'd better just keep that one to myself. Kate Wilson, a YouTuber, actress, host, and prolific geek guru who's now working to make a new show dedicated to the world of tabletop gaming a reality. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, because it's time to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and all of geekdom through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger, ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk.
Hey everyone, good evening. I feel like I've been out of action for a while. I've had storms in the area and lost power and lost internet, and so I've been away. But here we are, we're back. Everything is back on and working as expected. So welcome here to my home, welcome to the office, and welcome to Table Talk. And continuing our theme of, our Lovecraftian theme, we are continuing our discussion tonight about True Detective Season 1, with James Bacon, episodes 4 to 6. Welcome, James.
Hello, Heath. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
It is great to have you tonight on shorter notice. But hey, I thought we had a great conversation and started to really study these characters kind of archetypically, being this is a character study. And so this is the first time you've watched it through. I watched him again this afternoon when he decided we were going to go live. I rewatched 4, 5, and 6 and took notes. So I am
good.
up to speed again.
Good.
All right. Well, you brought up the idea last week that the characters were contrasting truth and lie.
Yes.
Truth in Russ, and then lies or hypocrisy in Marty.
Yeah, I think specifically in the first 3 episodes, I keyed in on Marty as specifically representing the lies that keep society going, They are the lies that build society, keep it intact, and Marty as the truths that could potentially bring it down. Now, obviously, those aren't the only two forces. It's but that's what I had said, and I think having seen these next 3 episodes now and again, I haven't watched through to the end because I wanted to kind of hold up my opinion for the whole series based on this kind of 3-act structure with the 3 episodes, because I think the first season only has 9, so there's only 3 more episodes.
Well, I think it's actually only 8. I noticed there's only 2.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Well, that okay, all right. So, is there like a longer finale? Is it like an hour and a half long, or?
Oh, I don't remember. It might be, but if it's not but so when they go and talk to Charlie, who was Dory Lang's ex-husband first off in episode. And I was thinking immediately when I watched this, and you were talking about truth, Russ is playing that part there because, and it is an interesting contrast that he talks to, he's very honest with Charlie that he may have gotten his ex-wife killed with his cellmate, which also has some great dialogue in there when the cellmate starts talking about the Yellow King and the guys who go out and worship at the rocks and all of that.
Yes.
And he let him know about his ex-wife, which does have, when he's talking about that, there's the great line, well, I don't listen to him, but he's big, so I don't tell him to shut the F up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna shut up either,
and I love that line. But then when he leaves, Russ does tell me, well, you showed him these pictures. You probably shouldn't have done that. You told him about that. You probably got him killed. And it is interesting that Marty is upset by that.
Yeah, because, and I think that's sort of the juxtaposition of the truth and the lie, because and I think the argument even was, or maybe not the argument, but the conversation was, why'd you do that to him? You didn't have to tell him that.
Yeah, he was already low, right? That's
what
Marty
and the response was, well, F him. He was more concerned with himself, because at the end of the conversation, they turn around to leave the cell, and Cole was fine just leaving it as it was, right? Like he didn't this wasn't a knife twist intentionally. This wasn't at the end of the conversation, Cole goes, oh, by the way, you probably got her killed. That's not how it went down. They got the information they needed, turned to leave, and he stopped them and said, well, what am I going to get in exchange for this? Or, what are you going to do for me? And Cole very honestly said, well, we'll put a word in for you with the parole board. Fair is fair. And then he asked, do you think I got her killed? And so he was prompted both times, right? But he was very honest both times he was asked the question. And his attitude was, well, he asked the question and he was more concerned with himself and his own situation than the murder. So F that guy. And it started off very strongly from that perspective. The Cole as truth, Marty as lie perspective. But that, I think, swiftly changed. It swiftly changed, or at least it at least positioned itself in a way so as to make me question whether or not that was still accurate.
Okay, well, let's talk about, we'll get to whatever scene that is that makes you question that.
Yes,
at first, because you've got Marty pressing the boundaries as the cop. Pressing the boundaries of a cop at the strip club, well, in several different scenes. The strip club, there's the iconic, okay, you got to visit a strip club at least once in order to solve the murder mystery. And so, he shows up at the strip club, definitely, throwing around his badge, at this strip club to get something. He does also get, this is the one, this is the episode that I mentioned last time, but I didn't realize we hadn't gotten to it yet, where in his later years, Marty does say the solution was right under my nose, that he was paying attention to the wrong things. So there is self-realization that comes in his older age. He has he says, my real sin, I remember this now, or I know this now, was inattentiveness.
Yes.
And I thought that was a very powerful line.
It is. It's a very powerful line. And it's, these 3 episodes weren't exactly super easy to follow because of all of the time jumping that we're doing. I will say this. I expected the time jump to take place. I expected us to examine the case in the past as it unfolded, both from their perspectives as they're giving their interviews. And I expected to catch up, right? But when we catch up, there's this whole other area, right? So here's where they did their investigation and initially solved, quote unquote, solved the murder. Here's this area that we skip forward to get to the present. So now we're sort of examining what's taking place in the present and in this window. And like daughters are growing up and relationships are ending and re-engaging and ending. So it becomes a very confusing timeline or narrative, I should say, because a very confusing narrative to follow. But I think that's intentional. And I think there are other methods of obfuscation. And so I'll leave it there because I don't want to jump any guns. I want to make sure that we get to things in the proper time. But I will say that it does, I think with intent, become very confusing.
Yeah. I wasn't going to go like scene by scene through it all, but I was noticing that especially in in episode 4, Marty at the hospital, of course, the stenographer tells the wife, and that blows everything up. And and of course, and then Marty goes to the hospital and is again throwing around his badge. It's okay, I'm state police. And the doctor calls him on. I guess it's a doctor who calls him. That's great, but are you in this capacity right now?
Yeah.
And Russ has to come and get him out of that. And he's speaking truthfully because, he's trying to solve this murder, and then Russ is still Marty is still worried. Rightfully worried about his family situation. That's not. But then Russ is like, this isn't any of my business.
Yes, this is none of my business. And he says it to both Marty and Maggie because he approaches Maggie at a diner, I think to maybe act as mediator between her and Marty.
Right.
But there's also some other layer of conversation that's going on there. And he says to her, because she starts to open up about it, and he's like, look, none of this is my business. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for some other purpose. And it's a very honest. So in this particular period of time, he still represents that honesty.
And it's rare that Marty is the one who calls him. Another great line, talking to Russ, "You are the Michael Jordan of being a son of a bitch."
Oh yeah, that's a great line. Yeah.
When it is completely the opposite way. It is completely, he is not figured. He has not figured it out at that point. He is not.
Yes.
So then we go to, what's going to lead into the drug raid, which is an incredible scene.
Yes. Yeah, that's incredibly tense. So they want to take down, or they want to acquire Ledoux. They find out that he is the solo cook for a group that Cole used to run with when he was in narcotics out of Florida. And so this is the outfit that he went deep undercover with, right? So he's actually run with them before, and he knows them and has contacts. And so this is the period in the show where I start to sort of doubt Cole as truth, but if he becomes the lie, he becomes the lie for the sake of good instead of the lie for the sake of evil or selfishness, right? Because everything that Cole is doing here, when he goes to, and first, I haven't seen the episode a second time because I want to get through the whole series before I go back and start rewatching stuff. But there's an idea I've kind of latched onto that it's possible that in these moments, Cole is merely offering information and allowing people to think what they're going to think. Now, they may not think what is true. Like, they're not going to he's not going to show up and be like, hey, I'm a cop. He'll show up and say, hey, I know this guy. It's Crash. I want to talk to this guy, Ginger. I want to talk to Ginger. And so everyone at the bar makes of that what they do, right? Because if you have a relationship with this guy, he's going to know you, if he knows you by your name, you must run with us. And there's that whole background that he has being deep undercover with them while he was working narcotics. But I can't say for certain that's actually how things go, because again, I need to, I think, watch this episode at least one more time. But this is where there's the that aside completely. This is where Cole begins to degrade a bit. And when I say degrade, I mean what he represents begins to like erode. I've also noticed something. They're not calling him Russ, right? His name's Russell Cole. They're not calling him Russ. They're calling him Rust. R-U-S-T.
Yeah.
I'm only just now noticing that. And so I think that's probably, there's subtext there. There's symbolism there in calling him Rust, especially now. And I think that it's kind of funny that I picked up on that after these scenes have all played out. Pardon me for using my hands in front of the camera. I'll stop doing that. But in these moments, he begins to, like I said, he begins to degrade with regard to whether or not he's actually offering the truth. Again, there needs to be a little bit more investigation into that on my end, but the lies that he's telling, if he is telling lies, the lies he is telling are, they're putting himself in danger for the sake of solving the crime on behalf of innocence. And so
Right.
That's a much different lie than the selfish lie of the affair that Marty's having, or some of the other things that come up later, right? Because it can be said that the lie that Cole maintains is for the sake of someone else, while the lie that Marty maintains, same lie, the lie that Marty maintains is for the sake of himself because of the situation they find themselves in. So
he does clearly, he realizes in this episode that he's not going to be able to solve this murder or this crime within the system. So
yes, he has to go outside the system.
He's going outside the system. So it's not even clear that it's not truth and justice that he's solving or that he's serving, because he does have this sense of justice, which comes up. He mentions what justice is several times in this episode.
Yes.
And so there is this sense of justice, but it's not the in the system justice. The system is not justice, and he realizes this. And so the first thing he does is he's doing this outside that system, and so he says he's taking personal time to go see his dad.
Yeah.
So he leaves off the police force. So, but that is to pursue this criminal gang in a way that he cannot otherwise.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's one of the things, like, is that a lie? Is he taking off to see his dad? No. But does he actually say that? Does he say, I need to take time off? And then someone asks him. And then he just offers, oh, well, my dad is sick. His dad could very well be sick. He's not the one who's putting the two together. Now, he is certainly misleading them by answering their question with, an ephemera, because that's not material to what he's doing. But I want to go back and see. I really need to go back and watch this and see how actually he's answering these questions and how he's crafting his sentences. But yeah, he takes some time off and says he's got to go visit. Or well, the implication is that he has to go visit his father who's sick, and that's why he's taking the time off.
Because he's realized, like when I was talking about last week, like how deep does the conspiracy go? He realizes that the entire police force could be compromised.
Yes.
That this, and this particularly in episode 6, there's a line I want to come to. But he's realizing that when he's going to take his time off, that all right, we got to do this. And why is he doing it? I mean, not for himself. I mean, there's really no reason for him to go and do this.
Yeah.
It is just it appears to be a sense of justice.
Yes. I would agree with that.
Do this.
Yeah.
So,
so maybe, maybe that sort of morphs his character a bit from the honest one to the just one, right? And because justice is not always honesty. And, for a time, justice can be honesty, right? He wouldn't want to lie just to lie. He's not lying to be selfish. But then when he begins to go down this particular path where he has to lie in order to gain the upper hand on criminals and obviously evil individuals in order to, deliver justice, or maybe even a little vengeance in there. Maybe not. This may be like sort of it's always been there, but now that we are able to see it, it's kind of layered in on top of the honesty. So now there's honesty, there's justice on top of the honesty. So the honesty is kind of subservient to the justice, which means that he can still lie in the pursuit of justice, I think. If we're going to, if we're talking about a character study, then
right.
Here we go. This is my take, I guess, on this particular character, which I love, by the way. I love his character.
I do too. I do too.
He is relentless. He is absolutely relentless. He is doing nothing to pursue anything other than this justice, I think, the whole time we see him.
And he puts himself into great risk going into an underworld type scenario with the gang and try to connect with the next cook to get to Ledoux, and they make him do a job for them to basically prove his loyalty.
Yes.
And they're going off into the bayou, and this is that leads to one of the most intense scenes in television, the actual raid on that house. The way it's shot, because it's all shot in one, like one flow. There's no cuts or anything like that. You're flowing the entire thing in real time as you're going through here. And I mean, I remember especially watching that the first time, just like it's like glued to the TV. Oh my God, what is going on here? Because just all of a sudden chaos breaks out.
And the way the tension is layered in there with like, okay, they're dressing up as cops. Okay, well, that's tense because we know that if they get caught, something bad's going to happen. Then they walk into a particularly rough neighborhood, right, where there's a drug exchange. That's why they're there, right? They're there to steal drugs or money or something. They're there it's a competing business or something along those lines. So then they're being challenged as they're walking in. They take hostages. So that's another ratcheted level of tension. They break into a house, guns come out, and then we have this incredible shot of Cole in a doorway, right? So he's in a doorway. He's in that liminal space between he's trying to balance things, right? He's like, Ginger, come on, we've got to go. Ginger's taking too long. Calm down, hold on, calm down, do not shoot. They start getting shot at. Ginger, come on, we got to go. Don't shoot. And then one of the bikers that they come in with, one of Ginger's gang, shoots someone. And then that's it. It ratchets up the tension to 1,000,000, and then the cops show up, and Cole doesn't know what to do, and they're going from house to house, and it's a really, really tense scene. It's extremely tense, man. It's extremely tense.
You get the image that Cole's now like, I've got to just live. I've got to make sure I live.
Yes.
I got to get him out of here. I got to get out of here with Ginger, and I got to make sure I live, because that's all that. And he does throw one of the kids in the bathtub before all of this goes down.
He does.
When that initial shot goes off, don't shoot, and then they shoot, and then you hear the ringing of the ears. The audio of the thing goes down, and then somebody starts shooting the shotgun through the broken window, and you can't see what's going on. I think this is an amazing scene. So
yeah, it's very well done.
So then the next episode is an amazing episode because this has the Ledoux confrontation, which there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's yeah. Heath, I'm still here. I have to turn my camera off for one moment, but you'll still be able to hear me.
Okay, so following what happens, Rust is able to get out with Ledoux. No, excuse me, with Ginger, and Ginger is able to connect.
And Marty comes and saves him. He calls Marty. He has kind of Marty on standby and says, "Hey, I need you here." And what's he say? 90 seconds, I think it is.
Oh right, yeah. That
place
end,
in 90 seconds.
Very end of that, get here in 90 seconds. And because the police are coming in, there's the helicopters coming in. So they take him and they've got him. And I'm not sure at that point. I'm never sure. I wasn't sure when they let Ginger know, if they do, that he's police. Like, I don't think they might not ever do that. Actually, I think that
I don't know.
They're just two guys. I got another guy, and this is part of this. So
here's my guy.
Yeah. He might not ever say that. And so he's able to be put with the partner, Ledoux's partner. But that's a no-go in that bar.
And that, I loved some of the lines in that scene. Why aren't you talking? Oh, I thought I'd let my man here do the talking. And the guy is immediately put off. He's like, no. What does he say? I can see your soul at the edge of your eyes. You got a shadow following you or something like that.
On you. Yeah.
And then he gets up and leaves. And it becomes apparent later that this person is into extremely seriously awful stuff. So for him to say, I see you have a shadow on you, it's fairly significant. It's fairly significant, I think. Now, we don't know that until later, till the end of the episode. But yeah, then I guess, what does he do? He tapes Ginger up, hucks him in the back of his truck, and goes for a ride, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure actually what happens to Ginger after that. But
well,
yeah.
He says he left him in a ditch. He goes, Ginger's in a ditch somewhere. And I think and this is another situation where I think he's saying what happened honestly, but he's allowing people to take what they will from it. He doesn't say he killed Ginger. He just says that he left him in a ditch. So for all we know, Ginger's going to turn back up. I don't know. But he could have just been left in a ditch, all taped up the way he was, right? And so, you'll get out eventually. Maybe someone will find you. Maybe not, though. I don't know. We'll see. But then, yeah, it looked like the plan was either A, they're going to get in good with this guy and they're going to start a transaction, or he's going to leave and Marty's going to follow him because Marty's there at the bar. Yeah. So that's what ends up happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they get to their compound, and I love how this is done because you're watching it real time while you're hearing the voiceover from the discussions with the cops.
Yes. Which is when it begins to unfold, it gets to a certain point as it's unfolding, and then there's this definitive divergence, and it's like, well, what's going on here?
And you're seeing versus what you're saying.
Yeah. And obviously you very quickly clue in happening, right? But this speaks volumes to Marty and Cole, right? Especially when some things come up later in episode 6. Like there is a lot of enmity between Cole and Marty. But this one thing they're able to keep straight for what was it, 17 years, something like that?
Something like that. Yes. Yeah. They are in lockstep on this thing.
Yeah.
They got their story straight and nothing's going to break that.
Yeah. Which is, it's just, it demonstrates the fabric of their character. The reason that Rust doesn't break is because he's protecting someone. And the reason that Marty doesn't break is because he's protecting himself. And I think that's an excellent juxtaposition to see them like that. And that even though either of them breaking and telling the truth here would benefit them individually, kind of, sort of. The fact that they have just kept it quiet is it's a remarkable character milestone, I think.
Well,
Milestone,
they kept the truth quiet, but they were quite vocal about their new version of the story because they got all kinds of press coverage. They become heroes.
Yep.
They get promotions and accommodations, and it even goes to repairing or bandaging Marty's marriage for a while. It's even a contributing factor in this.
Which is a reflection of Cole when Marty first gets into it with Maggie. There's a moment where he's very concerned about that, as one would be, and he asks Rust, "Hey, what do you think? What's your honest read?" And his honest read is like, "Well, give her a couple of months, and it'll blow over, and I can see her coming back around." And so this kind of made good on that promise to demonstrate that. Cole was not just telling him to shut him up to get him to go do the job. It was an honest read as he was asked for.
So this compound, you see them approach, but they're telling stories about being under heavy gunfire and this huge gunfight that they're having.
Yeah,
they find Ledoux and the cook partner, and you're wondering, what's going on?
There's no gunfire. What's going on?
And so, I mean, there are spoilers here, of course. I mean, all of this has been, but then they arrest Ledoux with pretty much no problem. I mean, no fight or anything like that. They get him down and have him arrested. Then they find out that there are children in the compound which have been missing, and terrible things have been happening to them. And Marty storms right out and shoots Ledoux through the head.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Well, and then the other guy tries to run, and Cole shoots him, and he detonates. Like I don't know what that's all about, but he explodes.
Well, no, well, I think that part was true because Cole did shoot at him. But remember, when they were coming in, he had all like the traps that like grenades by them or something like that.
Yeah.
And Cole does say that the other guy turned to run, and hit one of his crackerjack security devices took him out. So I think the reason he blew up,
say the clearing piece probably landmined. I think, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. So I think that's why he blew up. So that leaves them as the only two people there to talk about what actually happened, to give the account of what happened. But so Marty shoots him out of disgust. Immediate response, immediate rage, heat of the moment. Disgust. This guy steps out immediately and kills him.
Mm-hmm.
And Rust, after they've taken care of the other guy, Rust's immediate response is to make this right and to start the cover story about how he's dead.
Yes.
He jumps right into making this good. So I mean, and Marty has, I mean, he's clearly in a bit of shock.
Oh yeah,
and he has to, and Rust has to push him and get him to we got to get down here and start getting him into action again. So he's not. So I mean, here's truth. I mean, here's him constructing a great fabrication. So Rust constructs this huge fabrication here about what happened,
and it's like it's. I again want to go back and watch this because I want to know where the actual fabrication comes from, because we're hearing both Marty and Rust give their accounts of the same event at the same time. And so I think Marty is actually telling the lie. He is fabricating things. And Rust is just saying what happened, right? So, he was talking about like the heavy gunfire that swept through the particular, this particular area of brush. And that did happen, right? But he was the one who did it as a part of this cover-up. Now, the cover-up in and of itself, the act of covering it up, absolutely a lie, absolutely a fabrication. But even just how it unfolds is, I think, and again, I could be cluing into some things that aren't there. I do need a rewatch. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Cole is just 100% fabricating things. But I'd be interested to see, and I'm definitely interested to go back and watch a second time at least. But
if well, when he does it, he's still in pursuit of justice because he tells
yes,
Marty on, I believe, 2 occasions that killing Ledoux was justice.
yes,
Like
he does say that.
He says that, I believe, twice, especially if Marty is wavering. Emotionally wavering. Like, what did I do? I just shot this guy through the head. Is this a problem? Like, what is, and he is assured by Russ that what he did was justice.
Yeah.
And so the idea that if the truth is told there, in Russ' opinion, justice will be undone, or there will not get justice. That something's going to happen to Marty.
Yes.
So in order to preserve justice, you got to go outside the system again. We got to make sure the system doesn't handle this.
Yeah, because in that moment, Marty was the one visiting justice onto Ledoux. And to break that would be, a countermand to the justice that took place. But yeah, and this is all now taking place outside the system.
It's taking place outside the system. There's no guarantee that if you arrested Ledoux and brought him in, that he's going to receive justice anyway within the system.
Yes.
It's the vigilante kind of thing, but it was the instinct, that's the response. And so Rust goes right to make sure that is the case.
Yes. And something I don't want to skip over here, because I think it's really easy to skip over these parts in this series because it's a character study and because there are really big emotional moments that take place like this. We're being seeded information regarding this sort of, chthonic weirdness, right? This mythos weirdness. So before Ledoux gets shot in the head, as he's kneeling on the front lawn in cuffs, he starts to talk about the Black Stars, and he brings up Carcosa again, and the Yellow King again, and it's there is a presence there, and it's just very brief, and it's almost throwaway. He could be saying anything in that moment because that's not what is important to the scene in the moment.
Well, he's saying weird, just the idea that he's just saying weird stuff. He's not saying like, "Oh, please let me go. You got it all wrong," and he's not even directly threatening them. Like, "Let me go there. I got people out here, kill you, follow you." He's not saying anything like that. His response is some weirdness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's some weirdness and also surrender, right? Like he is almost entirely unsurprised at what's taking place. And he also, I think, even speaks to Cole directly about who he is and what he does. And he says, time is a flat circle. And I think like a scene later, Cole repeats that. He says, someone once told me time is a flat circle. And it's there's something there that's taking place that's a critical element that it's easy to skip past in the conversation. It's sort of like I don't know, it's almost like a moment. It's like an eye of the storm, right? All this stuff is going on around them. And then in the moment, it's very easy to miss. And again, that's, I think, partly because of the way the narration unfolds, because we're listening to the voiceover. They're flashing sideways or back or forward, whichever direction it is, into the interview rooms, to Marty, to Cole. I think this is the first time in the series where we see that, right? Where we see them both in the room alongside one another. Usually they're apart. It's okay, we're talking to Marty now, and then something happens that we see. We're talking to Cole now, something happens that we see. But this time it's like everyone is there, which is, I guess, indicative of their synchronicity in the lie, right? Because they're unified in the lie, and so they're unified in the narrative while the lie is being constructed. But it also makes for a very confusing scene to track. And so they kind of just throw that little tidbit out there that with Ledoux and the craziness that he's spouting, which likely becomes significant later, but I don't know that for sure because I haven't seen everything yet. So and there are other moments where we witness just completely strange things, strange events, strange circumstances, I guess, not events, circumstances, that are really easy to skip over in light of all of this other big emotional stuff taking place.
And there is another line right after he's shot that I want to bring up that I think is probably useful from the character perspective when we're talking about what's going on with Rust, because while Marty is still kind of in shock, Rust tells him, "Good to see you commit to something."
He does say that. Good to see you commit to something. He does absolutely say that.
So I think that's part of Rust's character that is absent from Marty's character. Rust, we've talked about how driven he is in this. He is committed to justice. He's even going to be willing to put himself in great danger, going outside the law in order to bring these people in because it's the right thing to do. It's justice. Marty doesn't have any kind of he's not committed like that. He's not. That's not in his character.
Yes, he's very non-committal in I think virtually every circumstance we see him in.
Non-committal and whatever's best for him.
Yes,
whatever's best for him is.
Yep, so, whatever's best for him, he's doing it. Yes.
Yeah, bring this guy in or let this guy go, or follow the rule or not follow the rule here.
Or even the small stuff, right? Just like ignoring his daughter's drawings. That's what's best for him in the moment. And so he's just going to ignore his daughter's drawings instead of, actually sit down and have the conversation. That's just, he's just absolutely incapable of committing.
So the gunfight repairs everything.
The gunfight repairs things between them. Yes.
Yeah. For a while. Rust gets a girlfriend, Laurie, and once again, Laurie looks like Maggie. Did you notice that this time?
She looks like Maggie, and she's a doctor, and Maggie's a nurse. So it's like it's even that much closer, which becomes important in the next couple of episodes, right? Because Maggie's trying to set him up with someone that's closer and closer to her until we get to that particular point.
And then here we end up with the daughter scene, which is the daughter, and then what happens in the jail to the boys, which is also difficult to watch. So
yes,
Marty's underage daughter is caught by some deputy in a car, unclothed, with 19 and 20-year-old boys, and the boys are in prison or in jail, and the daughter comes home with Marty and Maggie.
Yes.
Should have picked up on all this stuff going on earlier.
For sure.
They picked, they did have the scene, which, is comedic, when the daughter is younger and she's starting to dress like, goth-like or whatever. And, it's a comedic scene about not understanding your daughter, right? Like what's going on.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
there's also that exchange in the front yard, and I don't know, maybe this is immaterial to the conversation, but the younger daughter has the tiara on, and what's her name? Audrey, the older daughter.
Yeah.
They're just kind of playing around, little girls playing around in the front yard. And the younger one has that tiara on with the streamers. And then Audrey steals it from her, puts it on her own head, and then chucks it up into the tree, and it sticks there, right? Which I would think is a sort of, maybe it's a stretch, but it's kind of like an end of innocence sort of scene, right? Because she's being mean to her sister. She's lost the tiara. Her sister still wants the tiara. But then there's a transition that takes place. And it takes seconds. So we pan up, we see the tiara in the tree. We come back down to the street level, and there's a truck that comes up the street, parks in the driveway, and then lets the older Audrey out, and she's all gothed up.
Right. Yes. This also, so he tells Audrey that I can do whatever I want with those boys.
Yes.
And so think about that. And that's coming back again to what Rust said early on in episode 1 or 2, that I'm dangerous as a police officer. Yes, I'm dangerous. I can do terrible things to people with impunity.
Yes.
And he never really takes advantage of that, throughout this.
At least
but
not yet.
Marty certainly does. And here is another instance of that. And one of the most, and this is also a very difficult scene to watch, when he beats up these kids. Basically gives them the ultimatum, like, I can send you to Angola, like the hard state prison, and implying that terrible things are going to happen to them in there because there are other inmates there that really want to owe him a favor, or they can come out and do this personally right here. And, actually, if anything, this scene could have even been more brutal, but it's not, but it's still difficult to watch. And you can't, or at least I can't help but think that, okay, you're watching Marty deliver justice in some way to these boys.
Yes.
In a way that is something like what he did to Ledoux. Ledoux did something wrong, and, something
and
worse.
For the same reason. Right? It's for the same reason.
Yeah. The emotion, heat of the moment, response to what has been going on. This one's personalized. It's his daughter.
Yes. But it's still, it's underage, and it's not identical, but it is virtually the same sort of, at least in his mind, I imagine it's the same thing. So if there's one thing that he can commit to, it's this. It is this kind of justice, right? This is his commit. This is what he commits to.
But yeah, to me, it's contrasting. Like, you're more sympathetic to the Ledoux situation than to these boys. I mean, the boys seems like an abuse of power.
Yes, for sure.
And so I think it's asking you to, like, okay, why is that? But one reason is, it doesn't say, hey, Marty doesn't say, you can come out here and you can do this right here with me, or you can go into a fair court system and they'll decide what the best thing. That wasn't the option.
No. The option was how screwed do you want to be? It's your choice.
Right. Yes. Yeah. How screwed do you want to be? You're going to be messed up one way or the other.
Yes.
You pick, which doesn't sound like justice.
No.
And so this isn't something that you can see Rust doing.
No.
And this isn't something that probably Rust would have covered for.
No, probably not. I agree.
I mean, probably not. I mean, if this was,
I think, yeah. Probably not. Yeah.
I mean, it's also different because he's going into the jail. It's not like Marty was the police officer that found them and beat him up there on site, which is more like the Ledoux situation, which you might.
Yeah, and I think there's a parallel here with the conversation as they're approaching the compound with Ledoux. When they find the truck that has the net thrown over it to hide it. Russ starts to ask Marty if he's ever been hunting. Have you ever been hunting? And so that's kind of what they're doing. They're in the practice of hunting. And then there's that whole voiceover about how his father took him bow hunting, which means you have to stalk a prey and get within 30 yards of it. So it's very intense. It's finding it in its own environment. And in this other situation, they're in a box. Like, they're not going to go anywhere. There's no hunting here. It's just showing up and beating the crap out of them. And so there's a parallel, I think, to draw there as well. So yeah, I don't think Rust would have stood by, who knows? But I don't think he would have, protected this, because this wasn't justice. This was vengeance.
I have a note down here. Reggie deserved to die. So he must have said that again right around that time in the show. There must have been that line again that Reggie deserved to die. In episode 6, we have the new police chief. Did you notice that?
I did, yes.
Pointed that out last time. So what do you
Yes.
think about the old police chief versus the new police chief? Because now the new police chief is clearly a force to be reckoned with in the
Yes.
story.
The new police chief is assertive, and he is an authority. And I believe in the short period of time that I've gotten to know him, I believe that every issue that he was given or that he gave was followed immediately. And I can't really think of, well, no, that's not true, because he tells Cole to knock it off, right? He says, knock it off. But so he gives Cole that chance. He says, knock it off. Cole doesn't knock it off. And he's like, okay, well, gun and badge, you're suspended, and you have to go to psych evaluation before you come back on duty. Or 30 days before you come back on duty, something like that. And you know, they both kind of hem and haw about it. And he's like, no, it's done. You know, give me your badge and your gun, which eventually leads to Cole quitting.
Right, which eventually leads to him quitting. But it never tells you why the new police chief is there. Like, we never see why.
No, it's just
okay. Time jump.
Time
here
passes.
We go. Now we've got this guy is here, and again, this is one of those things that why, like, how deep does this conspiracy go? Because nothing on screen, I mean, based on what these guys are doing, is necessarily something that, or I mean, what the police chief was doing is necessarily wrong. I mean, he's clearly intense. He's, he is, a hard ass. He's not going to be taken advantage of. What he says goes. Mm-hmm. And he's got these guys who are acting in ways that he doesn't want on his police force. And so he gets his way. But on the other hand, when you're looking at it looking at the story and everything's going that, okay, well, we had a very permissive guy there in this, and he's the one who was basically letting Rust and Cole, Rust and Marty, investigate this crime, criminal gang, this criminal activity and all of this.
Yeah.
And because he even said, when they were going to, do you want to hand it over to the task force? The police chief looked at him and looked at Marty and said, it's your call. Do you want to hand this off? And so he abrogated his authority, gave it to Marty, and Marty said, hey, give us to the end of the month.
Yeah.
And the police chief was like, oh, all right. Okay. All right. And then you got 1 month, at the end of the month, and then you'll hand it off. Okay, good. This guy doesn't do that. And in fact, I think there was also a line that police chief said, something like later on in there, there are a lot of people asking questions, but eventually they're going to stop asking and they're just going to start giving orders. Well, that's what this new police chief is. He doesn't do a whole lot of asking.
Yeah.
He just steps up and he starts giving orders. So if you're thinking about how deep does the conspiracy theory go, it's possible that somebody with authority recognized that, listen, a problem we've got is this weak police chief. We need to get our man into as the police chief.
For sure, because
that could have happened.
The last police chief let them get way too close. In fact, they probably would have taken down everything had Marty not overreacted in the heat of the moment and blown Ledoux's brains out, right? Because they would have been able to take him back for questioning and get all kinds of information.
They would have gotten more information.
Yeah, instead, it stopped right where it was because of the reaction, Marty's reaction in the moment, justified though it may have been. And so then they went, hey, this guy's actually a problem, because if they continue to pursue this like Cole decided to do years later, they're just going to, ignore whatever warnings that the police chief gives them and continue through and, possibly jam someone up, quote unquote, or, discover the rot at the core of the town. And
Rust doesn't even know. Because I like that, like, you don't know as the audience, and Rust doesn't know. Like, the environment that he's working in is a very uncertain environment too, because he says, and this also goes toward the writing of the whole show, because it's never explicitly said, you don't know, but he's like, things are getting missed here, and I'm not sure if it's because of just the garden variety incompetence around this place, or if something's really going on. I mean, that was basically the line. Like, I don't know why, and that was like. Right, that might have been like right before he quits, or right before one of the times before he, is admonished or whatever. They're like, he doesn't know what environment he's operating in. Like, everything here could be compromised.
Yeah, and yeah, And he continues to go, outside the system. So
yeah, he goes to
when
visit a number of different people.
Yeah, when does this line take place? When the
garden variety
incompetence
incompetence?
or yeah.
Let me see if I can find that.
It's
I
probably
don't
not
think.
important.
Well, I think it's. I mean, there are two major scenes with them in the police chief's office. One of them is after the fights happened, and it wasn't then.
No,
so
it wasn't
I think it was. When I guess but I guess there are two before that. One where he says "cut it out" or "you're done," and then another one when he says "you're done." And it might be the one where in the conversation where he says "you're done." He's like, "This is some garden variety incompetence here," because that's when he comes in. He says,
"Oh yes, yeah."
Tuttle. And he's like, no. If he had a problem with that conversation, then I am onto something.
Yes.
Now, the guy who was like the chief highway patrol officer, who wasn't in uniform in that situation, but is often shown in uniform, says you don't get to decide what kind of conversation it was. And I think he was like the chief of the highway patrol.
The guy that was kind of like sitting down, kind of not looking at anyone, like shy in the corner or something.
Well, I don't think he was all that shy.
That's what it looked like.
White hair guy.
Yeah.
To me,
like
he was
like kind of over on the end of the desk.
Yeah. To me, he often looks like the muscle. Because he's often in uniform as the and the highway patrol. So one of the more, you want to say military, more militaristic than the detectives are. He's the one who is out there, and so he's right there in the room with them, and he's physically imposing often when he's on screen. Walking through, and he even like one time like busts into or knocks into Marty and kind of knocks him out of the way, and as he's walking into the police chief's, headquarters, stuff like that. So he often comes across to me as the muscle, and that's like part of, who do we need to have on our side if you're this criminal gang? Well, the highway patrol, like the police in general, the highway patrol.
That's how you get everything to and from. You know what I mean?
That
makes sense. I hadn't actually picked up on this at all as far as this particular character as the muscle. And in fact, I can't even remember when he's been around except for this one scene.
Well, right? He's not in there often. I mean, he's not in there often, but I think it's a tribute to the writing that you'll notice him again. Like one of the first time I think I saw him was when he was in uniform, and it's one of the scenes with the old police chief in maybe episode 1. Mm-hmm. It might have been when he was talking to Marty about, do you want to hand this off? And Marty gets up and he's walking into the police chief's office and bumps him in the shoulder, doesn't stop, doesn't whatever, just walks in and knocks Marty in the shoulder. And,
gotcha.
Turns around and flicks him off or something like that. And then he's standing around other times beyond that. And okay, so another thing that I noticed this time as a line when he goes to speak with Tuttle. I don't know who the guy is that plays the Reverend Tuttle, but man, he's doing a fantastic job.
He reminds me of, have you ever seen The Lost Boys, the 80s vampire movie?
I have not, no.
Okay, so there's a character in that movie, and I'm not going to say anything more other than that if you do see that movie, and I highly recommend it. It's a great 80s film about vampires. He reminds me of a character from that movie, and you will know exactly who I'm talking about the moment he shows up on screen.
Okay.
I will not say more.
Billy Lee, who is this actor? J.O. Sanders. Okay, I don't know him. But yeah, he does such a great job playing it's like a characteristic that a lot of different televangelists have, the superficial charm and charisma and the smile and all of that is there, but then behind that that this is a con man that
building his quote unquote church, right? It's the only religious building that we've seen in the entire series that isn't temporary or hollowed out or destroyed in some
that's a
way.
good point.
Every other religious building, including the school that Cole investigates. Now, we've seen this school before. He went and talked to the groundskeeper. But even that school had been run down. This is the only religious building that isn't completely dilapidated or otherwise temporary like the tents are. And even in his office, he has a big neon cross up on the wall, which is like just totally ridiculous. And like just totally ridiculous.
Why would you have that up there? It doesn't fit anything else in the room.
Nope. No, it sure doesn't. And it's like, it's like Las Vegas, neon cross kind of chapel, like weird, highly commercialized. It's because it's a front, right? Because that's what signs are for. It's to tell you what's inside. And so it's a grand, I would think. Now, again, have not seen the series through to the end, but based on that, right? And the idea that like true evil appears as an angel of light because true evil is a deceiver. Like absolutely there is some form of deception going on here, especially because his is the only religious building that we've seen in the entire series that isn't completely gutted or destroyed or otherwise temporary. That's my read on his character. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent read, and on the building as well. That he's got, and it's so smarmy, and what's going on. Now, in this case, because you're just reading this character, because he's like, the way he says it too, like, well, you want to know about this or that? Oh, that's what I was saying. They were private institutions. You'd have to contact them. Oh, the records. Well, we did lose a lot of records with some
flood.
A flood in the sub basement, but I'll let you. And of course, and Russ knows that, like, oh, this has been cleaned up. Like there is, it'll be a waste of my time to go and do that.
Yes, absolutely, waste of his time. And he even offers him. He said, "I'll get you. I'll put you with a clerk of ours, and we can go through records." And really, what that offer is I'm going to put you with someone who's in the know to just put you in circles over and over and over again. They're going to tie you up in so much confusion and needless paperwork and stuff you don't want to see. You're going to be so tired. You're going to want to get out of here. But the whole time Cole was in his office sitting at his desk, he's watching him. It's almost like he doesn't blink, right? And the other times that he's doing this, and Marty even says previously in one of the episodes, it's either 4 or 5. He says, you think you were getting a read on him. He was getting a read on you.
Right.
And that's what was going on in this office at that desk. Cole was watching him and seeing what his tics are, what his what his baseline behavior is, what seems out of place, the answers that he's giving him. He was getting a read on the guy. And it seems pretty clear that he's in on it.
Yeah. And the clerk is also, to me, it's also like, we were absolutely accommodating when the police came by. We offered to have the police and that they can prove that, oh, well, nothing is actually there. He looked whatever and some records were destroyed, but everything that we had, the police are welcome to look at. And you know why that is? Because we have taken care of anything that we don't want.
Everything that was destroyed was what he wanted to look at. Yeah. And then even on his way out, right? He says here, we'll put you together with a clerk to go and check those records. Cole immediately goes, "Now I'll do that later," because that's not what he was there for. He just wanted to see what the answer was. What's the behavior? He wasn't there for the actual records. He was there to see Tuttle's reaction to the question,
being asked for them and whatever, and ask about the revival guy because he's now down on his luck because he started to figure something out.
Yes.
Or potentially be onto something, and he got shunted.
Yep. And on his way out, as the doors are closing, Tuttle says, what does he say? He doesn't say, "I'll pray for you." He says, "No, I'll be thinking of you.
You'll be in my thoughts."
You'll be in my thoughts.
That written down too. Yes, that's such a weird thing because you'll be in my prayers. I'll be praying for you, detective.
Yes,
that's what would ordinarily be said. But he looks there. There's "you'll be in my thoughts." Such a weird line. I mean, great line.
Super weird, but like really, really well
in my thoughts. Okay. And
it's
then
like it's a thoughts and prayers, right? It's a nod to thoughts and prayers, but it's not that. It's a very well crafted line. I think I involuntarily like gave a little laugh at that, like just a kind of a one ha kind of a ha when he said it. It was really good. Really good.
Yes, and then of course, then you go to the scene where the police chief, as a result, the police chief is getting after him for going and having that conversation, which we just talked about. But okay, but Tuttle, which I had not picked up on before, he does say, well, I haven't been preaching as much lately. I've been, because he's been working on all these other things, and one of the things that he says that he's been working on is the state policeman's charity.
Does he say that?
He does.
I missed that. Okay.
I had missed it every time because he names a couple of things. And for the first time I picked up that he says, well, I've been working on the state policeman's charity. And so that's how he's buying the police. And that's how like the highwayman can become the muscle and all of that, because I bet that he has this nice policeman's charity that is buying off the police officers. That's why would he be running the state policeman's charity?
That's nuts. He's a really good character. I mean, you can only do so much. Like when you introduce archetypes like his into a show, regardless of where they appear, you can only do so much to mask them, right? Like the moment he shows up, and they even talk about this, when they first kind of keyed into Suspects, immediately he shows up with this what is it? It's an anti-Christian crime task force.
Yeah.
And so they want to take it over because whatever the excuses that they give. But the moment he shows up and he's shaking everyone's hand and everyone in the police precinct loves him and they're excited that he's there, it's like, you can only do so much to mask the corrupt spiritual leader archetype, and usually it's not very effective because usually it's just a very noticeable, it just calls attention to itself. It sticks out like a sore thumb. And so he showed up in that. I think it was like episode 1, maybe episode 2.
It's episode 1.
Like, okay, he's coming back later and he's going to be a bad guy. You just know it's going to happen. But, unless maybe they're going to swerve me. Maybe he's not a bad guy, but
no, he's dead. He's already meant. Well, that he's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah.
They bring it up in the interviews, don't they?
They bring it up in the interview that that he died about the same time Rust came back.
Yes.
In the main timeline. Yes. So they've hinted at what his fate
right.
is.
Well, yeah, because they're establishing the timeline. Russ comes back. Yeah. Okay. I remember now.
Then we also get the twist here, and this is when two major things I guess are going on in this last episode that we haven't talked about yet. Really, is that the situation with Rust and Maggie, that deteriorates. I think that's really done well and realistic. Like when you realize what was going on here. Because
even says, "Be honest with me now," and he is, and it turns out she's not. Right? Because she's not there because she loves Rust. She's there because she loves Marty and wants to hurt him because he hurt her.
Yeah, well, maybe love. I think that she's definitely trying to get him away. She's been trying to get him away. For a long time.
Yeah. So yes, obviously it's complicated. She wants to hurt him because he hurt her. She wants to hurt him in the same way, but also, like you said, she wants him out of the house, and this will get him out of the house. Well,
and she says that's why, because she started to go with the stranger at the bar, and
but she couldn't.
Turns out that she didn't do that, and she tells Rust that it had to be you because now he'll have to leave. He won't tolerate that. She was afraid that a stranger at the bar or whatever, he might still hang around. But this is finally going to make him go away. Which is a terrible thing. But I think that the whole situation, the dynamic, but it's so well done in the show.
And then they have their fight.
Which leads to a fight, right? Which leads to a fight between them.
Right. And Rust, he's only there to get his files, he says. I'm only here to get my files because he's quit at this point. Or no, he's about to quit.
He was still he was
suspended and there to get his files. They have their fight. The Rust's truck's tail light gets busted out because Rust actually throws Marty into his truck, and that's kind of what ends the fight, right?
Right.
So then they're in the office. The police chief or the captain or whatever he is starting to talk about, what's going to happen and how they're going to behave. Rust is like, no, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And he just quits because he's already operating outside of the system in order to get things done anyway. He knows that there's no help for him here. He's just leaving. I'm out. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm not really operating within your purview anyway. So I'm out. I quit. Everyone goes, what? Really? And he's like, yeah, this is total bull crap. And he leaves. And then we find out, I guess, and I don't even know, I'm a little shaky on like how they knew to meet each other, right? So Marty is being interviewed. He walks on them. He says, nope, I'm leaving. You guys are wrong about Russ.
And because I want to talk about that, because that's the other big thing is that coming up here at the end, that actually the police officers who are interviewing them believe that Rust is a suspect in this whole crime.
Because there are killings that have now resumed that echo the one that's put them together in the first place, with the antlers and the weird circumstances and the symbol and the swirl on the back. So this is happening again. I think there's more than one body. I think they show more than one picture. And they're trying
around the time when Rust came back.
Yes,
and
around the time when Rust came back.
Around the area.
And so they're trying to really drill down on him being the suspect. Marty walks on them. And then they just kind of meet up like it was planned the whole time. Right?
Well, I don't know that because he chases. I don't know exactly how Rust knew where Marty was, but Marty chases him down on the road.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I guess I just missed that. How long does that take place? Him running him down on the road.
It's like the final scene of the last of episode 6, right?
Well, I thought the final scene was so. Russ comes up to Marty in his car, says, "Hey, it's been a while. I think we need to talk. Let me buy you a beer."
Right. Oh, right. Yeah,
but that's after he comes back to the window and says, "No, you buy me a beer."
Buy me a beer. Right. Yeah.
And then he gets in his truck and he pulls out onto the road, and we see that he's never fixed the taillight.
And the taillight is still
time, which is a great, like, wow, what that was awesome. I loved that. It was very slick.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, that's it. He was honking at him.
I'm mystified as to how did Russ find Marty? How did Marty find? Were they intentionally going to the same place? Was it planned? Was it circumstantial? Like I am a little at a loss for how they met each other.
I'm not exactly sure on that either. I bet that I guess what I thought was happening was that Marty was being interviewed after Rust in the main timeline.
Okay.
So I think Rust had already walked out because he also walked out. You've wasted my day because he was trying to look at the files and they gave him the files and he says, oh, this is all you. So he was there. So talking about the read again. Well, that's what was going on. Rust was trying to get a read on the police officers. He wanted to see also what was in those files that they've got. And it turned out to be a bunch of nothing as far as Rust was concerned. The drinking was strategic. Because if he knew that I was under suspicion, this will not be admissible in court as soon as I start drinking. So I think even the drinking was that his line about and you say, I got to have beer here. So if he knows he's under suspicion, that immediately discounts this as evidence because he wants to see what's inside that file.
That's awesome.
And this
that's another thing I guess I hadn't picked up on. Like I knew he was drinking, obviously.
Yeah, I think it was deliberate. I think that was a deliberate thing on his part, and not just
okay.
But that did shake me when I was watching the through. It's like, okay, I wasn't expecting them to turn this on Rust.
Neither was I, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's
like
a great twist.
I knew there was something there, they wanted something, but I didn't know that what they were going to end up at was him being a suspect of the murders themselves, right? But let's think about this. If the state police force is bought off and Rust is the one poking around, really good way to get rid of him would be to say that he's the one responsible, throw him in jail for the rest of his life, where he can find an accident and die, and you'll never have to deal with it ever again. Like
Exactly.
that seems like a way that this may have been going, right? That's
you get the surprise that, they're after him, and then you realize, I'm operating in this corrupt environment where anybody is suspicious. So when they throw it on Rust, then we as the audience immediately become suspicious of the police officers and like, wait, what are you guys doing? Like, we thought you guys were straight this whole time, because even Rust is like, you wasted my time, company men. And you can tell that he's also suspicious then of these. Wait a minute, these guys right here. And you can tell how he's looking at them too. When they're, tell him right before he stands up, they're like, he's like, I think you guys are in on this. Like, what's going on? Right. And it's another layer.
He asked them questions and
So again,
I'm really excited to see how this resolves.
Really well done, I think. But all the way back in episode 1, when they first introduced Tuttle, even though he's dead now, they did, I think, mention that he's the cousin or the uncle of or the nephew of the mayor or some kind of representative. No, I think he's the mayor,
kind of governor,
or the cousin of the governor or something like that.
Something like that. I am sure that there's going to be some sort of villain that gets introduced as the mastermind that we haven't yet seen. So because we've had these arrows pointing up the whole time, there's probably going to be someone who we haven't yet met who's going to be sitting in at the head of all of this grossness. But I'm looking forward to it, whether or not I'm right or wrong. I'm super excited to see how this resolves.
All right. Well, was there anything else we need to say? I mean, I think that pretty much covered it. I love talking.
No, I think we covered all the major. I think we covered everything. I'm probably going to start watching again after we hang up, because I really want to see what happens.
All right. Well, so then we'll report back tomorrow. I'll be live. I'm going to provide a report on the introduction to Dungeons and Dragons game I played with the nephews. And
I can't wait to hear.
We'll be talking about that tomorrow on the Morning Grind on the Heath Geek First channel. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And whether you're here or watching on replay, we will chat with you later. Bye, everybody.
Like and subscribe, everyone. Take care.
Please do.
Thanks for having me, Heath. Thank you so much.